Welcome back into the Ohio MMA podcast. I am your host, David McKinney. Joining me on today's episode, undefeated amateur fighter Connor Cleveland. What's up, Connor?
Not a whole lot. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. So you are about a week out, a little more than a week out from your fourth amateur fight, going over to West Virginia to face Jeremiah Slagle at Live MMA at Morgantown on November 9th. So how's training camp wrapping up, and how you feeling heading into this fight?
Feeling pretty good. You know, it's been a decent camp so far. Pretty healthy. Weight's good. Just looking to get in there and get to business.
Yeah, and you're facing Jeremiah Slagle, who he's 4-2, and it's really interesting in your career. You've quickly as you've gotten more and more fights, every fighter that you face has seems to have more experience, and this is the most experienced guy you've faced. But what do you think about the matchup against Jeremiah?
Yeah, I mean they're all tough matchups. It's another man across from you, ready to rock and roll with you. So yeah, experience. It's a lot in the cage, but I'm also growing with experience every fight. So I've got a lot of experience in my corner. So we'll deal with the experience and we'll roll with it.
Yeah, and you talk about a lot of experience in your corner. You train at Gracie Orwell up in Geneva, Ohio, training under Cody Lewis and Brad Bukovics. I think that's how you say his name. But you have an interesting gym where you have two really experienced coaches, but most of the fighters coming out of your gym are not a ton of experience, but you guys have quickly made a name for yourselves in terms of the performance and getting a lot of wins on the local stage. What do you attribute that to having so many fighters that are 1-0, 2-0, you're 3-0?
When I first started going there was just Paul Bortnick was the only fighter there, and then Connor Seifert was just starting there as well. And I think with them and their experience and them continuing to fight and then succeed kind of brings in a little more spotlight to that little gym. And I think a lot of people have hopped on board with what we got going on there at the Spire.
Yeah, and I actually did commentary with your coach, Cody Lewis, back in July at one of the Made Men shows. And he was I'd never really talked to him that much before, but he's such a cerebral guy and has such a knowledge of the game. And of course, he fought, which helps a lot as well. But what do you think that he brings? Because I know
he
you
knows
come
both
from
sides of it.
Yeah, you come from a jiu-jitsu, technically a jiu-jitsu gym, but you guys have now started to transition more into MMA.
Yeah, I guess traditionally it is a jiu-jitsu gym, but Cody's been around a long time. He's got a lot of knowledge up there in that brain of his, and he does pretty good with have some pretty good striking classes through him, and he gets us ready to rock and roll striking wise. So it's not just a jiu-jitsu gym anymore, but there's plenty of jiu-jitsu guys there to get us ready jiu-jitsu wise too. So
yeah, and you're actually fighting out of state, out of Ohio for the first time down in West Virginia. What's your thoughts on going over to West Virginia to fight?
It'll be a little different to travel. 'Cause I think all my fights have either been an hour into up there in Euclid and Cleveland, or it was right in our backyard there at the Spire on my last card. So it'll be a little different, but we just roll with the punches there. It's not a big deal. I've traveled out of state before, so get our rest, do our thing.
You've also got a couple of your teammates on the card now. I know that Kyle Vincil is on the card, and it looks like I think just today Ryan Elrod was added to the fight card as well. That's got to be nice, even though you're going out of state, having multiple teammates on the card.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone to warm up with who's going into the same battlefield as you. They're feeling the same things you are. So Kyle's been in the cage once before. It'll be his first time out of state competing too. And it's Ryan's first go, so it'll be nice to kind of be alongside Ryan on his first go of things and try to keep him steady.
So how did you eventually get started in MMA? What brought you into the sport? And I know you're now you're 31, but you've you started fighting a year ago, but what it's always like you see like so many young guys at 20, 19, 22, but you're an old guy like me.
Yeah. I started pretty late into it. Just I've always been a fan. I've watched it through high school. I came up in a wrestling family, so it was kind of something we watched and enjoyed. And then my brother, actually, he's the one that got me going to Gracie when we were in Orwell still. And I tagged along with him just because he wanted someone to go with him. And then it's kind of been just rolling downhill from there. We just started with some jiu-jitsu classes, like jiu-jitsu. Cody said that he also does some striking classes on certain days of the week. So we thought we'd check that out and start doing those, and then wanted to do a little sparring afterwards. And from sparring, we just kind of have grown into wanting to try to compete and see how far we can go with this thing.
Yeah. And you like I said, you made your debut almost exactly a year ago, a year and like 3 days ago from when we're doing this interview. But like I said, you've quickly kind of moved up the ranks. You fought a debut guy, then you fought a 1-0 guy, and then your third fight, you were 2-0. You actually fought Akil Brazier from Strong Style, and you won your first 2 fights via decision and won that one via armbar in the first round. And that one, at least for me, feels like it definitely kind of puts you on the radar in terms of like a really good prospect and a guy who who has a lot of talent. Not that you weren't before, but it's like 1-0, 2-0, you never know. But then you're like, hey, you fought a tough guy from a tough gym. Do you feel like that that kind of put you on the map? And did you like mentally feel any different after that? Like, man, I know I can go out there against tough guys from tough gyms and come out with a win.
Yeah, I think Akil was tough. He had a good record, and I think anytime you beat someone with a positive record that's got a little bit of experience, and especially out of that gym, I think it'll help put your name out there a little bit. So, I'm excited that I have got that opportunity with BCM and to fight him, and hopefully continue fighting like the bigger names and more experienced guys.
Yeah. And you actually come from Jefferson, Ohio, which I had to look that up. I've never heard of Jefferson. Even being an Ohio guy, I feel like I've been everywhere and heard of everywhere. Population is 3,000 people, a little over 3,000. Is that where you're originally from? And what's it like coming from a small town of 3,000 people?
Yeah, pretty much born and raised here in Little Jefferson. It's a good little town. It really is. It's tight knit. Everybody knows everybody pretty much. It's got good schooling, pretty decent sports. So I like being able to come from a small town and kind of maybe put the name Jefferson on the map a little bit more and let people know what kind of people come from these small towns.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I've been covering local MMA for like more than 10, like probably close to 15 years at this point. I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter from Jefferson. Are there any other fighters in Jefferson? Any like street fights or anything like that going on?
I'm sure there's a couple of those every weekend out in this small town, but no, there's actually a pro fighter. He's fighting. He does a lot of his fights out in California now. Cause he went into the military and got based out there, but Blake Perry, he does a lot of fights with, Cage Fury. He's a pro now, and he's a boss. So he's the OG around here with the fighting. Gotcha. And there's also Brandon Hinkle. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the Iron Lion, but
yeah, I didn't know he was from there. I know Blake. I didn't know he was from Jefferson though, but I know he's fought in like Bellator and stuff as well. So
he's making his way up the ranks. So yeah,
I think he's out in San Diego. But yeah, I mean, it's also like one of the interesting things too is so many fighters coming from small towns. Like not too far from you, Cody Garbrandt came from Yorksville from T County. Do you kind of look up to guys like that? Of course, the guys from your area, but guys from small towns as well.
Yeah, it's awesome to see people from small towns kind of grow and make a name for themselves, because we don't get a big spotlight here. Like you said, you've never even really heard of Jefferson before, so it's cool to see guys get out of the small town and really put out and make a name for themselves.
Yeah. So what do you do outside of fighting? Do you have a full-time job that you have?
Yep. I'm a chemical operator. I work a 12-hour swing shift. I'm everyday blue collar guy.
You feel like that brings a little bit more to your background in terms of like, what hard work is like. So actually getting in the cage, and I mean, the training of course is hard, but the getting in the cage part, a lot of times I hear from fighters like that's the easy part.
Yeah, no, it's it makes you mentally tough because there's days after some shifts that you really don't want to go train, and it's been a long day as it is, and knowing you can get off 12-hour shift, go train for 2 hours, and do that day in day out, then you're mentally you're doing all right.
Yeah, how'd you get the nickname Buff Connor?
That's not that's Cody's doing. He likes his nicknames, and we have two different Connors. There's Connor Seifert at our gym, and there's me. And when I came along to differentiate us, he's got Connor Seifert's Thick Connor, and I'm Buff Connor.
Oh, nice.
So.
I always like I always ask guys about their nickname because there's always like a good story. It's never like, oh, like I just whatever thought of something cool. But that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna talk with Cody, and I do commentary for fights, and I always tell like I want to give up fighters nicknames, but I'm like, I'm terrible at it. Like I'm so bad. I'm like, you don't want the nicknames that I'm going to give you, but that's a good name at least. Like, yeah, you got Buff Connor and Thick Connor.
Yeah, we'll take it. It's from Cody's brain, but it'll do.
Yeah. So now you're, like I said, just around a year into the sport. You're going into your fourth fight. What's the goal for you in the sport? Do you eventually want to try to go pro? Do you want to, get to higher levels in the sport? Where do you see yourself eventually getting to in MMA?
Well, the first goal, I guess, was just to step in the cage and do it. And then when we won, I kind of wanted to. Next goal was let's see if it was a fluke. And then we were 2-0, and then it kind of is like, well, I might as well take this and try to go get a championship belt. That's where we're at right now. Just gonna work on this fight, one fight at a time, and we'll see. Like you said, I'm 31. I'm pretty fresh into this sport, so might not be long days for me, but we'll take it one fight at a time and see where we can go.
Cool, man. Yeah, I like that mindset. I feel like going, one fight at a time is always it. It's such like an easy thing to say, but it really is. Like you gotta get past the guy that's across from you on Saturday night. So that's always the tough part. Yeah. Yeah, man. Anything you got to mention? Anybody else? Any sponsors? Any of that fun stuff?
No sponsors for me. I keep it pretty straight to the point. I'll just shout out Gracie Spire. They're the ones that have gotten me here. All my teammates there, and I got a great support group from my girlfriend, Alexis, and then my family, mom, brother. He's the one that really got me started into this. So those are the guys. Those are my rocks. They keep me going.
Yeah. You mentioned Gracie Orwell. I did want to give you guys another shout out because I just looked at the roster. Ben Fielding 4-0, yourself 3-0, Paul Bortnick, who he hasn't fought in a year, but he's 3-2. Connor Seifert 3-2. You've got Peyton Hearn, which I didn't realize he was out of your gym as well. 2-0. Kyle Vincil 1-0. Jacob Lagoa 1-0. Ryan Elrod making his debut. So you guys have definitely a crew there where it's like it's nice to like it's got to be nice to like get a bunch of wins. I think you guys went 3-0 at the BCM show, and definitely looks like you guys are getting a lot of momentum and it's starting to snowball. And it's awesome to see another like smaller gym with more and more fighters coming out of the sport. So
yeah, it's there's a bunch of studs there, and there's going to be a lot more to see from those guys in the future for sure.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. November 9th, Maidman Promotions live MMA at the Waterfront over in Morgantown, West Virginia. That is Connor Cleveland taking on Jeremiah Slagle. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, and we will be back next week with another episode.